r/ProRevenge. First story. Can't you just unload around me? So this happened earlier today and was too perfect to not share with you guys. I work in construction as the foreman for a new house build. The location is kinda strange. The house is 250 feet up a hill via a footpath only. All of our materials have to come up this footpath by hand. It's a pain in the ass to manually carry, quite literally, an entire house up this hill. One of our saving graces is having the 2 parking spots on the street at the bottom of this hill marked with official no parking signs. Unfortunately, there is an elementary school about half a block away, and the parents of children seem to regularly, at least twice a day, think it's okay to park in our spots. Now I consider myself a reasonable person, so if someone is parked in the spots and we don't have a delivery or a need to park a truck, I will let it go. If we need the spots, and there's someone parked there, however, I will ask them to move nicely, and most of the time they do so immediately. Until today, I get a phone call from the lumber delivery truck that is en route to our location. He says he'll be there in about 2 or 3 minutes. I'll let him know I will meet him at the street and make sure he has space to park. He's carrying all of the material to frame the roof of our house, which is a lot of really big lumber and will take easily an hour to bring up the hill. So naturally I didn't want him parked in the middle of the street with his hazards on for an hour when we have a perfectly good parking spot for him. As I begin my trip down the hill, I notice there is a school parent sitting in her car idling, assuming she's just waiting to pick up her child. I walk up to her car and politely let her know that she is parked in a no parking zone and we really need her to clear it to park a delivery truck. She scoffs at me and rudely states back, "I'll just be a few minutes and your truck isn't here. Take a chill pill, dude." Before I can respond, a giant lumber truck comes around the corner and I wave to him and then gesture towards him to the woman in the car, who has now put her window back up to ignore me. I put on my best customer service smile and wave at her through the window. She put it down halfway and angrily shouts, "What?" By now the truck has pulled up alongside her car and I politely ask her again, with a stronger tone of voice, to move her vehicle, reminding her that she is illegally parked in a tow-away zone. Then she gives me this wonderful idea. She says, "Can't you guys just unload around me? Jesus, it's not that hard." I give her another smile and walk away, a brilliant plan forming in my head. I instruct the delivery driver to park as closely to her as possible and block her in with the porta potty that is at one end of our reserved spots in the parked car that is parked just adjacent to our spots on the other end. He smiles because he immediately gets what I'm trying to do and proceeds to expertly block this lady and her car into a little 2 parking spot jail. We unstrap the lumber and my guys begin humping material up the hill. Meanwhile I call the police parking enforcement to let them know the situation. At this point in time I wasn't trying to get her in trouble. I just wanted a record of why we were blocking part of the street so we don't get in trouble with the city. The very friendly traffic officer lets me know that she can be there in about 30 minutes and deal with the situation for me. Wonderful. As we continue to unload lumber, the child of the parent shows up, and wouldn't you know it, mom is just now realizing that the lumber truck is parked so close she can't get out of her driver door to meet her kid. She awkwardly clambers across the inside of her car and stumbles out the passenger door, shooting glaring looks at me and the truck driver in the process. She loads her kid into the back and then begins to realize that she has no way of leaving. She comes storming up to myself and the driver and states, "I'm in a big hurry. You need to move your damn truck right now so I can go." Before I can respond, the driver gets a grin on his face and says, "Ma'am, in order to unload the lumber on the truck we had to unstrap it, and per our company policy I'm not allowed to move the truck with any unsecured load on it. Sorry." This sends her into near aneurysm levels of blood pressure. Meanwhile I can barely contain my laughter. "Fuck your policy, I have somewhere to be." She barks back at him. At this point, with impeccable convenient timing, the parking enforcement officer shows up and parks behind the truck. She doesn't see the officer arrive, and while the officer is still getting out of her vehicle I just casually say, "Can't you just pull out around it? It's not that hard." With the biggest shit-eating grin I've ever had, I watch as she realizes that I just used her line on her. "Fuck you." She yells and storms back to her car and angrily clambers back in through the passenger door and into the driver's seat. At this point the officer is walking up to myself and the driver. Before she can even introduce herself, the mom in the car slams it into reverse and stomps on the gas, crashing into our porta potty and knocking it over, and then throws the car into drive and tries to mount the curb and drive on the sidewalk. The officer, driver and I are staring in disbelief as she gets halfway over the curb and gets stuck. I can hear her screaming obscenities over the idling truck from inside her car. The officer promptly walks up to the door of the car and orders her out. My favorite part of the entire thing is watching her face go to shock as she realized she just did all of that in front of a police officer. She gets slapped in cuffs as the parking officer calls for a second unit, and she is promptly sat on the very curb she tried to drive over. She sits on the curb yelling to the now two officers about how we told her she could stay there, and that we never asked her to move. The traffic officer responds that she was the one who was originally called when she first refused to move, and that she already knows what's going on. While myself and the driver are giving a report to the second officer, my guys finish moving the remainder of the lumber and the driver finishes his statement and takes off to go back to the yard. By the end of the ordeal she was arrested, charged with child endangerment. Her kid was in the back of the car the whole time, reckless driving, destruction of property, the porta potty, and driving on a suspended license. On top of all that she also got her car towed. The kid went home with his grandma and she went to spend some quality time in a cell. I never expected her to actually heed my advice to just pull out around it. But I think next time she'll probably think twice about parking in a tow-away zone if she ever gets a license again. TLDR, rude lady parks in construction site reserved parking, asks us to unload around her, so we park blocking her to do so, gets mad when she now has no way out, crashes into our porta potty and tries to mount the sidewalk, gets stuck, and the arrested by an officer who was on scene, and all with her child in the back seat. Second story. Harass my daughter on Minecraft. You can't hide from me. So, my daughter, who was about 8 at the time, was really into Minecraft, as most kids are these days. Also desperately wanting to join the YouTube/Let's Play culture, I had installed some screen recording software that would let her make videos of the games she was playing, so she could later upload them to YouTube. Anyways, one day I'm minding my own business when I hear her quietly snuffling over on the computer. I asked her what was wrong, but she didn't want to tell me, so I let it go, but decided to keep an eye on her. A few minutes later I discovered what was happening. Someone was harassing not only her, but also all the other kids playing on whatever server she was on. This kid, we'll call him Little Shithead, or LS, was saying shit about how he was going to rape my 8-year-old daughter. She told him how old she was hoping he would stop, how he was going to hack into her IP and steal all her info, swearing profusely. Remember, this is a game for kids, etc etc. By this time I had gotten my fiance involved, and she was also obviously quite upset at what a little shit this kid was being. We realized that our daughter had been recording the entire incident, and a plan began to form. I started by googling LS's username. There were several hits immediately, the most interesting of which involved a page where he was publicly applying to be a mod for a server on Minecraft. I was able to learn a lot about this little pose. He claimed to be 15, likes hockey, used to live in Toronto, but now lives in Florida. But the bombshell was easily his Skype contact info. It was literally first name point last name. I know your name now, you little shit. So I head over to Facebook and search for the name. Nothing. On a hunch I searched for just the last name, while narrowing my results to only the state of Florida. Several dozen hits. So I have to start combing through each one until I find what I was looking for. A middle-aged man with the same last name, whose profile indicates he was born in Toronto and now lives in Florida. I found your dad, you little shit. So I sent him a message on Facebook, asking if he had a son named first name who goes by his username on Minecraft. Dad confirmed I had the right guy. So my wife begins telling the dad everything that LS was saying to my daughter, and we sent him the recorded video as proof. Radio silence for a few days. Then we got the message back. LS had his computer taken away from him for the entire summer, and had also been lying about his age. He was only 11, I think. His parents were fucking livid with him, and he surely hated the next few months of his life. No one fucks with my daughter. Edit. Spelling. Edit 2. Holy shit. Someone gave me gold for this. Thanks. This has to be the first post I've made that's blown up on me. Thanks everyone. Edit 3. Whoa. Front page of my old tab. Maybe I'm too new to Reddit and that's not a big deal, but it's still super cool. Also, I'd like to point out that, while I understand that Minecraft isn't just for kids, there are some serious hardcore Minecrafters out there. I can tell you that probably the biggest demographic is on the younger side. I know that people of all ages play all games, but I feel like Minecraft is one that people can reasonably expect to be rather civil. Third story. Giving away a Master Sergeant's golf clubs. So many years ago I was a logistician in the United States Marine Corps. My unit was headed overseas on a little mini deployment to Morocco. I was in charge of the logistics in my unit, even though I was only a corporal. This was because first we didn't have a staff sergeant to run the shop and the sergeants we had were garbage at logistics and got put to work for me. So anyways, we're gearing up to go on this little mini deployment and the Master Sergeant, who was going to be the highest ranking enlisted, comes over to my office to chat. He starts off being real cool and then eventually asks if he can bring his golf clubs within one of our containers. I thought to myself that it would be wise to be on his good side since I was only a corporal and going on a deployment with his company. So I agreed, even though it was against the rules and regulations. However, everyone does it all the time. So anyways, we go to Morocco and he has his clubs. No course in sight, but he was happy hitting balls, so I didn't care. However, then everything changed. His Marines didn't request to bring enough materials to build what we were there for. They start saying I'm missing a 20-foot container, which doesn't happen to me. So I finally solve the mystery. It turns out they didn't request to bring enough and left the materials behind their office. So here we are in Africa to do a job, but we don't have enough materials. So he tries to use me as a scapegoat. Even a gunnery sergeant and a staff sergeant of his get in on this and just treat me like shit because I refuse to take the fall for their shop's fuck up. This goes on for the entire 2 months we are there, and we are in the middle of nowhere, so nothing for me to do but deal. Anyways, we start heading home, and we head back to civilization to a port, and we had to clean our gear to go back to the US as per customs and biosecurity. So we are cleaning everything. Even tank had to take tanks off their tracks and clean the tracks. It was a pain in the ass, but still a cool experience. The problem, however, was that the Master Sergeant kept needing to reopen containers that had been finished. Now the problem with this was that we had to have actual US customs agents on site and use their banding seals to seal the containers, which then had to be documented with the unique serial number. Every time we had to open one, I had to beg the customs agents to open them and let us get whatever the MSGT needed and then close it up without having to redo the cleaning. Normally it is a solid no, but the agents were cool and we worked it out. Plus every night I usually ran into them at the bars and I would buy them beer. It got to the point where the agents didn't even have any of their own seals left because of how many times we did it. They ended up using mine to reseal. It really made things difficult, and it was often for dumb shit. So finally I had it. It was literally the last day we had for cleaning, and of course the MSGT wanted something else. So I asked the agents. They were really fed up of it. However, I then asked, do either of you guys golf? One of them said yes. I said then we need 2 containers opened. So we got the dumb shit for the MSGT. Then we went to the other container, where I knew the MSGT's golf clubs were hiding. I opened the container, pulled out the clubs, and gave them to the agent. He looked at me, and I just said I don't wanna hear shit about opening any more containers. He was cool with it, and got it in his car. No issues from there on. Anyways, we get back to the States and the ship pulls in with the gear, and we got it home no problem. A week later the MSGT comes in my office. He's all buddy again. He then asks where his golf clubs were. I said my guess is your garage or your closet. He forces a chuckle and goes haha, okay come on dog, where's my clubs? I then said IDK what you're talking about MSGT. He then said my club's in the container. I then explained to him that per the Department of Transportation Regulation Chapter 3, I even had it down to the subchapter and paragraph letter, that no personal gear can be shipped inside of military cargo containers. He then starts getting mad, and I keep repeating the paragraph. He loses it, grabs me, but my shop's GI sergeant got to him quick and pulled him off before he swung on me. He never did find out what I did to his clubs, and I left the unit about 6 months later to go to my next command.